When people talk to me about sacred texts that you will not find information from anywhere else in the world, there can be none, in my personal opinion, which surpasses the content in the Coiled Serpent. So I thought I would share with you one of my favorite chapters. I have read this chapter before, but it was years and years ago, and it'd be interesting to see how my interpretation of this chapter has maintained the same, or if it's changed in any context. And equally, I think you'll find this very, very valuable. And like I prefaced, you're not going to find this information anywhere else. What I love about the Coiled Serpent is that it's each chapter is very, very short and pertains to a specific aspect or nuance in continence, so sexual and creative energy, and what a man can do with that particular power. And this particular chapter delineates what the occultists believe, what individuals who practice, what would you say, knowledge that is hidden from the masses, come to understand, and what they've come to teach in respects to practitioners of becoming the Übermensch in their particular ideology. So let's begin. In occultism, all sexual intercourse is forbidden in practical occultism. Really, really interesting preface, and there's a lot of continuity with the concepts of brahmacharya in Vedic and yogic tradition. So on the beach of the unfathomable ocean of life, we are all playing our game or absorbed in our own favorite pastimes. Proudly the athlete struts among the boardwalk, showing off his inflated muscles. Along the water's rim, the scientist proceeds exclusively, intent upon investigation of whatever the ocean has cast ashore and brought him within reach. Sun-shaded sits the artist, registering impressions of what he observes around him and what is inspiring to him. Outstretched lies the philosopher, speculating upon the being of the sea and the sky and the land and the living creatures and their interrelations. Forgetful of the surroundings, the religionist in the devotional attitude bows his head, adoring the unknown force that manifests in nature's magnitude. On the sand within the tidal strip, the psychic rests in negative receptiveness, letting the waves touch him whenever the flow comes up. The magician is attracting wide attention, trying to make the tide recede by strange manipulations and a mighty exercise of will. The mystic, after meditative contemplation, so longs for a momentary merging within the ocean of the one life that he has dipped into. But not knowing how to swim, he is soon rolled back upon the shore again. When the waters are untroubled, the surf unstirred by the wind, the yogi dives and serenely swims a while in the samadhic sea. Looking and watching over all from an elevated point stands the occultist. I really love the introduction into this chapter because it goes through all these fairly well-known practitioners of increasing competence in their particular field. You know, the yogi, the athlete, the mystic, the psychic. But they proceed to say that all of these fall short to the standards of the occultist, the accomplished man. In fact, we're using this analogy looking out into the sea, and which profession understands the ebb and wave of the sea, the untold treasures in the ocean and earth. And the lifeguard is used to describe what the occultist is, because he is master of the sea, he's master of the sand, and in fact, he stands like a sentinel above all of these. An elevated point stands the occultist, it says here. He has made this his profession. He is all-knowing, all-seeing, omniscient, omnipotent in this regard. And why I really enjoy the introduction to this chapter. You know, whether or not there's merit in this idea, I'm sure each of these particular individuals would disagree. It is nevertheless compelling in the way that it is posited in this particular point. So we move on. He is here to help others, ready to render aid whenever called upon. He knows the ocean well, has thoroughly explored it, and is at home in it. With eyes unclosed, he can go down as deep and stay down as long as he may wish. He observes more, knows more, and can do more than any of the others. Each of the others is but an incomplete expression of the single aspects of the occultist. He is the synthesis of all others. He exemplifies a progressive stance of balanced evolutionary growth towards superhumanity. So this is why I know a lot of people get annoyed with me using the term occultist, maybe in my marketing and maybe in my videos, but this is one of the first kind of interpretations I got of occultism, and you can see how compelling it is. You know, I really identify with the mystic, with the yogi, with the athlete, but the way it's posited here is superhumanity, is the most evolved human. That's what the occultist represents in this particular interpretation, in this particular text. And I would always be a white occultist practitioner, not a black occultist practitioner. And the distinction between the two is, you know, on the one hand side, you have the black occultists who would use this esoteric and unique knowledge for self-gain at the expense of others. Whereas the white occultist is an individual who uses his esoteric knowledge as a means to further himself, but also further his community, his family, his friends, not at the expense of them. So there's a very selfless and selfish thing you can do with this particular pieces of knowledge. The designation of the occultist is frequently misapplied to dabblers in theurgic and pseudo-occult crafts, or to students of occultism who are still as far from being occultists as a kindergarten pupil is from a doctorate. So, you know, it's really interesting, the synchronicities and what I've said there and the misinterpretations that many people will have of this. And, you know, I will double down on what is posited here. These are kindergarten pupils from a doctorate. They are so far below the understanding and the foundational knowledge that is needed in order to synthesize a comprehensive understanding of what it means to hold esoteric knowledge. The accomplished occultist is a highly and harmoniously evolved human being in whom all faculties of the body and soul can be used at will. He has risen above the danger of clinging tenuously to any one-sided form of development. For him, all-round perfection is the chosen goal. And again, this is why I love this interpretation. It's not this idea that human beings are specialized. Like that's for bugs, isn't it? That's for insects. You know, a spider is very, very good at, you know, making webs, but a beetle can't make a web. The occultist says, no, why can't I make a web? Why can't I have the armor of the beetle? Why can't I have the flight of the butterfly? Why can't I develop all facets of myself as comprehensively as I can? And that's what I'm trying to do here on this channel. You know, I believe self-improvement doesn't just come under the three rubrics of sleeping with as many women as possible, being as jacked as possible, and having as much money as possible. I believe there are other dimensions that we need to explore. And what is really lost in the field of self-improvement is a spiritual dimension, a connection with God, a conscious exercising of that particular aspect of your soul and personality. It is in prayer. It is in meditation. It is in being present. It is about being grateful and selfless to your community, your family, and to your friends. It's also about being intelligent, about being articulate, about being well-spoken, about being well-read, about having good general knowledge, and also having some kind of understanding in the nuances in that field of knowledge. Maybe it is in having a fairly good grasp of the social, political landscape, or perhaps health, or perhaps something more unique. So again, I don't believe in this very specialized approach in terms of your personal development. I believe in widening that breadth and saying, you know, why not? Why can I not be this multi-dimensional evolved human being? And the keys in that lie in using all your assets. And the asset that I prefaced this and this whole book, the theme of it is your creative energy, your capacity to create and be reproductive, not just on the physical plane, but on the mental plane, on the spiritual plane, on the psychic plane. And this is what I would, if you love that idea and that concept, that's what I'm trying to do here. So you're in good company here, and you can subscribe to that concept, that Übermensch, that multi-dimensional, filling in all the XP in every single area of your character, not just one. We want to be multi-talented, multi-skilled. And that's the occultist. Abundant physical vigor, scientific understanding, artistic inspiration, philosophical speculation, religious adoration, intuitive receptivity, mystic contemplation, yogic concentration, magic, willpower, plus other still more wonderful abilities are all acquired by the successful occultist, each to an extent beyond the comprehension of those who seek to specialize in any single faculty. So how can that not be compelling? How can that not light up that zeal and fire in your belly? The true occultist does not use any of his attainments for the worldly benefit of the personality, nor to enhance its glamour. He brings all the powers of the soul into expression into the personality for the sake of helping others. And by the growing impersonality of his being, which is of the very character of spirit, he gains access to the source from which all power springs. I love this concept in this idea of recognizing God, recognizing spirit, and whatever your word is for God, universe, soul, energy, recognizing that comes in giving back to the world. The world is a mirror. If you give to the mirror will give back to you in that way. So it's a reciprocal thing that you are doing here. You're recognizing when you're giving back to your community, you're actually gaining. And that kind of interplay, that intercourse, you could say, is a medium in which you recognize God. It says you gain access to the source from which all power springs, which is the divine. To become an occultist, then, is in the acme of human attainment. But occultism gives no prospect of cheaply and immediately gained infinitude of wisdom. In the first place, he who would become an occultist student must continually increase his moral strength, his inner purity. The laws of attainment demand purity of life. So this isn't something that can be achieved overnight. This is dedication to the Most High in this respect. Whoever wishes to come to the supreme state of the soul must purify his mind and body from all passions. For this reason, all training in occultism has an ascetic quality to it. An essential requirement is knowledge, not only the physical science, but of the science of all superphysical laws as well. And in order to be able to acquire it, the student must lead the life necessary for the acquisition of such knowledge. The study is of no avail unless the spiritual intuition is developed by the purification of desire. The sanctuary of the esoteric science is closed to the frivolous by the laws of their own nature. I often think about this in the way that, if you want surface level understanding, put in surface level effort. But if you want deep understanding, give deep effort. This reminds me of a tweet that I do, which is, if you want cheap results, invest cheaply. But if you want expensive results, invest with expense. And it goes the same way here. What you give is always what you will get. And that has never changed. That's the law of thermodynamics. Energy can neither be created or destroyed. It just transforms. The output is always dependent on the input that you give it. Only by way of purification can a soul acquire the perfect knowledge of all things knowable. Therefore, the passions are not to be indulged by him who seeks to know. Passions, again, very, very surface level, very, very transient. He alone who disaccustoms himself to concupiscence makes his heart acquainted with secrets, with those deep secrets of nature which it would be dangerous to divulge to anyone remaining ever so slightly sensual or selfish. It is the reward of the conqueror who vanquishes the foes of his own nature, that he has imparted to him the secret of knowledge. I've often said, don't fear the man who conquers the world, fear the man who conquers himself, because there is no enemy in the world that is more deadly and dangerous than your own inner demons, your own inner critic, than the reflex of your limbic system itself, the sexual reflex, the reflex to gorge upon pleasure to no end. The man who has slain that demon, that is a formidable foe. Not until knowledge has thus been acquired is it safe to attempt the development of any occult powers. If men knew the divine powers, which are dormant in their constitution, and were to pay attention to their development instead of wasting all their energies upon the trifling affairs of their external existence, then there would soon be many competent occultists. But men either do not know and do not even want to know about such powers, or if they know about these, they are reluctant to believe that occult science allows not a shadow of self-indulgence. But woe to those who dabble in any form of occult science without first overcoming the most important faults in their own lower nature. Carnal passion suppresses the faculties of the soul. It suffocates the soul. Hence the insistent demand that the disciple of occultism, above all, must be absolutely chaste, both physically and mentally. Reminds me of the brahmacharya, very, very strict in that way. They say that you can relapse in your mind before you relapse in the physical. Once you start to entertain fantasy, you're done. You start again. You start by purifying and burning away those impurities. Whoever, after having pledged himself to occultism, indulges in the gratification of a terrestrial lust will feel the almost immediate result of being dragged from the impersonal divine state down to the lower plane of matter. I think we can draw analogies here to this concept of relapsing back into old patterns after tasting the purity, the dopaminergic peace of healthy reward centers. The sooner the animal sexual affinities are given up, the sooner they will come to the manifestation of the higher occult powers. Then only can harmonious evolution progress be made, and then the consciousness of power in itself, the most exquisite joy, is unceasingly gratified in the progress upwards. Infinite power to be impersonally selfish, constructively used, will eventually then become available in such a prize not worth the sacrifice of personality's self-indulgence. So I don't think my opinion has changed. Maybe my greater understanding has been deepened and solidified and consolidated, but I'm interested. Have I changed your opinion here and what this truly means to be an occult practitioner? I hope I have, and in that way, I hope it gives you the burning fire and zeal to commit to this kind of path. These aren't theories, these are facts. Speak soon.